What is up, everybody? What's up, PCP Army? Welcome to PCP Movie Night here on Pop Culture Philosophers. We are plowing our way through Crew's Choice this year, the year where, or this is the part of the year where we get everybody in the Excitable PCP crew to pick a movie, because usually it's me picking the movie, so we let the crew have their choices. But this year you had to pick a Tom Cruise movie. This, I think, is the redemption tour for Manny. This is Manny's pick tonight. He has previously picked Dr. Sleep, which put me to sleep. He had recently picked The Page Master, which made me want to turn that page faster. And tonight, he's trying to go for redemption with Interview with the Vampire, based on the Anne Rice novel, a film from 1994 starring Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas, Kirsten Dunst, and so many more. Let's get into it. And Manny, this is your pick. It's your night, man.
I thought we were doing the vampire Lestat. I didn't realize this one.
All right. Well, Manny's getting his mic issues fixed.
Yes,
Let's bring in Brooks.
What's up?
What's up? I think we're back with Manny now.
Perhaps.
Yes, there you are.
There we are. I thought we were doing Vampire Lestat. I completely missed this one out, dude. So if y'all can review Interview with the Vampire, I'm gonna be talking about the amazing sequels that came out. I think that's where I'm gonna
Queen
go
of
with
the
this.
Damned.
Yeah, I thought we heard Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, that's what I don't know, man. The joke worked in my head before I started talking. That's usually
But
how
Tom
this
Cruise
works.
isn't in that movie, Manny.
Yep.
Well, like Tom Cruise in this movie, your mic's a little hot. Speaking of hot, it's Verno. What is up?
Hey, what up? This has been already one of the best episodes so far of Crew's Choice. I'm stoked to be here.
Happy to have you here from Blood Splatter Chatter, who we just had a great conversation yesterday about Godzilla -1. If you haven't seen that movie, watch that damn movie, then go check out Verno's show
Thank you,
about
buddy.
it. Hell yeah. Also, we got Joe Corallo in the house.
Hey, show just got better.
It got better because we're not talking about Minority Report.
It's true. We're not talking about Minority Report, and also Godzilla -1. Great. Saw it in IMAX. Saw the black and white. It's such a good movie.
Hell
My
yeah.
God.
It is.
You
I
know,
mean, one of the best
unfortunately,
movies to
Tom
watch.
Cruise isn't in that, but
if only Tom Cruise was in it for one scene, we could have done that for Cruise Choice. All right, this is the panel. Jelani's not able to be here, but I do have his rating and I do have his favorite character, so we can go over that when we get there. So 1994, I went and saw this movie in the movie theater, right? So I'm like chilling with my friends George and Nathan at the time. Their Aunt Tabby is watching us, right? And she wants to take us to a movie. She wants to go see Interview with the Vampire. And as soon as we get to the scene introducing Antonio Banderas, she realized she made a mistake because we were 13. I think we were old enough for this film personally. It's not like we were 8. I saw way worse back when I was 8. I watched Porky's like at 6 or 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? So like Interview with the Vampire was nothing for me, right? But I remember vividly that day watching that movie, and I never really went back to it too often. And then in hindsight, a lot of people, you know how things happen where a movie's big and then all of a sudden they're like, what are you talking about? We always hated The Dark Knight. You know, that kind of a thing. You're like, what? What are you talking? No, you loved it. I saw you. You were there. You loved it. People started doing that with this movie. They're, oh, this is the movie that gave us the cheesy, tortured soul, romantic vampires, and it ruined vampire fiction and all this kind of stuff. That stuff existed way before. Yeah, right. Yeah, this is not what led us to Twilight, right? I mean, stuff like this existed before.
Yeah.
But I've never read the Anne Rice books. And I remember rewatching it at some point in the early 2000s, but not really, I guess, noticing things. I don't know. I completely forgot about certain elements of this movie. On this rewatch, I thought it was exceptionally well done. I thought it was much better than I remembered. It was surprised me actually at some of how gnarly and gory it gets at times, right? It's got great makeup effects. It holds up. It's not a perfect film in my opinion, but Manny, I would say that you redeemed yourself from The Page Master and Dr. Sleep. I think it has a nice pace to it. I think it's got good performances, the costumes, the sets, the scale of it. Now, I've heard people say, well, the book does it better. No fucking shit. You know what I'm saying? Of course the book's going to do it better. It's the book. It's the original thing. You're able to go in there and put so much of yourself into it, especially with the visuals, right? And the voices of the characters. But I've also heard Tom Cruise plays the shit out of Lestat. And like, so much so, like, Anne Rice did not want him in the movie. She left her, she like got rid of all of her involvement in the movie because she was the writer. Then the director, who is Neil Jordan, who had just done The Crying Game. Neil Jordan rewrote some of the script, but because of the contract with Anne Rice, she has to be the sole writer credit. But she leaves because she was that adamantly against Tom Cruise. And later, like, apologized and even put out like ads in Variety talking about how great the movie is and it was a masterpiece. And he, like, when he heard that she didn't want him in the movie, he actually got his feelings hurt. He lost a bunch of weight so he could look more vampiric, right? He went to France. He studied the aristocrats back in the day. He really dived into this role, and I think it shows because we've covered some great movies so far during Cruise Choice that Tom Cruise happens to be in. But I think this is probably one of his most solid performances out of the films that we've talked about so far. So I'm very excited to get into this movie. Visually, a masterpiece, lots of great performances, including my favorite, which we'll get to. But Manny, this was your pick. What's your history with it? Why'd you pick it? What do you think about it?
Oh, no.
No.
We hear nothing, brother. But you look great. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. First word.
When he was little, he loved the book.
Yeah. You saw the film. You went home and jerked off. No way. You love the movie this even more or the same?
Do you just want to give you a minute, Manny? All right. Brooks, Interview with the Vampire. What's your history with it? What'd you think?
Yeah, I remember this movie was like a big deal when it came out, but it wasn't one I ever saw. But I remember like it was a movie that everybody talked about. You know, it was parodied constantly. You know, it was a big thing, and like I'd never seen it, so I was kind of curious as to like how this movie was going to be, and I really liked it. I think this is my new favorite Tom Cruise performance.
Yeah.
I think he really just gets into the role in this one, man, and like it's a blast. Like I like the kind of mythology she has of vampires. It's like it's not like too much about anything, she's just kind of like, some things work on them that are supposed to and some don't, the whole idea of like, the religious symbols not working out. Like I kind of like that, and like they're not like, there's similarities in like later kind of vampires, like the Twilight vampires, in this kind of like, these kind of weird power sets, like vampires having like telepathy and shit like that. But I think this movie like does it a lot better. Like it's a lot more interesting, I think. So yeah, I really liked it.
Heck yeah, man. Glad you liked this Tom Cruise movie. And because on Wednesday, you came up to me and you're like, bruh, how much longer do we got to do this Cruise Choice shit, man? I'm so tired of watching these Tom Cruise movies. Manny's back, I can tell, because you seem loud now, but I'd rather have you loud than not at all. So let's see what's going on.
All right. So I grabbed my original starter mic from the YouTube starter kit that we get.
Still works. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that thing. All right.
Best $19.95 you ever spent.
I actually did in 1999 because before Amazon started their rules where like people couldn't give you stuff to review for free, I was getting all kinds of these FeeFine mics. So if you go onto the channel and you're like, why did Manuel do a whole bunch of tech reviews and why is he singing in a whole bunch of cheap ass mics? That was me getting some free mics.
I remember those days, man.
So many videos. Yeah.
What do you think about the book, the movie?
Oh yeah, no. When I was a kid, I read the book because I I have really low self-esteem. So I would grab like big ass books from the library so that when people saw me reading it, they think, fuck, he's smart. And so this was one I actually read. So this one, Redwall Abbey, like with the mice and stuff. That one was
Oh
another
my
one that I
god,
loved.
brother, I loved that.
Oh, dude,
Red
my
Wall.
kid's middle name is Matthias because that was the name of the mouse, dude. So that being said, yeah, this was a book that I actually read and I liked the book. When I saw the film, it's a little slow. But on the rewatch, definitely appreciated it more. I hadn't developed, whereas Robbie has this like on your timeline, you have this like this is when snobby Robbie was. I needed to acquire more snobby mobby. I don't rhyme, but I had to acquire more of that in order, I think, to appreciate the film for what it was. But yeah, absolutely love this movie.
Heck yeah. Nicely put. What about you, Verno? What do you think about the movie?
For me, it was really similar to what you said, Robbie, where like I remember I loved it when I was a kid. I remember thinking it was badass, which is also funny to think back on. Like I was like 12, 13 years old. And this is like everybody my age had seen this movie. We had all seen it. And I can't imagine 20, 24-year-old or modern 12-year-olds being into a movie that is this paced. But when I watched it, I was thinking it's probably not going to be that good because it does get like a shittier reputation in the horror community. People argue whether or not it's even horror, and that's crazy after watching it. It's terrifying at times. Like it's super intense. I agree. Tom Cruise is freaky scary in this. Like it's definitely my favorite performance out of the movies that I've watched. This Cruise choice. The makeup. Stan Winston did the makeup effects for it, by the way. 4-time Oscar winner. I don't know if he won an Oscar for this one, but that's incredible. I love a good narration. When Brad Pitt starts, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be rough. Like the first scene with Brad Pitt, I'm like, oh, I don't like him as this character. Very much grows on me very fast. But yeah, overall, I thought it was way scarier than what I thought. I put it on with my kid in the room. So I'm like, Interview with the Vampire. This is pretty tame. It'll be fine. That ended real quick. They start slitting Lestat's throat. I'm like, oh my god! And he looks amazing when he comes back from the grave. But great movie, man. I loved it way better than I thought it was. And I'll say this: I have like a Fang Fest coming up that I'm picking out vampire movies for. Was probably not going to do this, and even after, especially since you said you were doing it, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not going to do it. After watching it, it might be like my favorite vampire movie. I might have to put it in Fang Fest because it's Fright Night is great. I would have said Fright Night's way better. Lost Boys way better. After watching this is like one of the great horror movies like ever made. I think it's really like it's damn near a masterpiece. It's so like elevated, compared to what people would think. That's why it doesn't get called horror. Is because it's so much better than what a lot of horror movies are. But it is horror, like through and through, 100%. But yeah, great pick, Manny. And I will say, Dr. Sleep, solid pick as well. Might not have been a great movie, but it was this very solid conversation worth having. Page Master, I didn't watch it, but I heard it was terrible. But
to each their own, right?
You're missing out.
I think you gave it like a 3. Like you didn't hate it, Robbie. Dr. Sleep.
Page Master wasn't that bad. You're overreacting.
Whatever, man. It's a bit right now. The bit is that Manny picks bad Cruise choice movies, but this is the year he breaks that streak. Okay,
my bit is to stand up for Manny. I think you did good with Dr. Sleep.
Dude, I appreciate it. I didn't pick Days of Thunder. I can tell you that much.
Oh, that's a low blow.
Shots fired.
Well, okay, but I think everybody on the panel liked it more than they liked Funhouse, which astounds me, but whatever.
Better than Cats.
It is better than Cats.
It is shut your whore mouth, Brooks. You just shut your whore mouth.
What about you, Joe? Interview with the Vampire. When did you watch it in theater, in IMAX, in black and white, and what did you think about it?
No, kind of similar to like what a lot of other people were saying. Like, I remember this movie. It definitely didn't hit me the same way as I had not watched this movie. I couldn't tell you the last time. I was probably when I was like working at Hollywood Video, but even then, like in the 90s or whatever, my vampire movie of choice that I watched with a bunch of friends over and over again was From Dusk Till Dawn. That was in regular circulation, but yeah, I mean, I was blown away this time watching. I was like, the fuck people like, because again, like I clearly remember, I think we all do, around the early 2000s, it was, I mean, before that too, but around then, like I'm in college and people would come out of the woodwork to shit on Anne Rice. Like out of the woodwork, people would just kind of like, she did. And it's like, and it's, I mean, it's crazy because this was what a phenomenal watch. It's aged incredibly.
Yeah.
I will say though, seems kind of gay.
Just kind of.
What?
Just don't know if people picked up on that.
That's
but,
where that boner
no,
came from.
yeah. But no, I talked to someone recently who was talking about like you got to watch the AMC show. You know, they really add a lot of like queer elements to it, and I'm like, oh no, that movie kind of. I think we were covered. I don't think that was like, you know, something. But yeah, it's what a great movie, and again, it's like it's. You know, talking about things like pacing or whatnot, like, oh, it seems kind of slow on that. And it's just like, it's paced in a way like an actual interview. Like we're getting the story that way. And it's like a different kind of story, structured that way, which I really appreciate. And I think makes it stand out. I don't think you get Buffy without this movie at all. I mean, this movie, the timing and everything, I think Buffy started like I know there was the movie first, but like the movie's nothing like the show. And the show is basically the PG-13 version of this.
Oh, 100%.
Like completely cribbed it. I mean, there's even that reference in episode 1 of season 5 where they're fighting that like one Dracula-esque kind of vampire, and she says, you look like a pimp named Lasat or like something like they make the joke like specifically in that. It's so fucking good. And again, the effects, everything. It's weird that some people didn't like it. I will give them credit. Siskel and Ebert like this movie, and a lot of times they are the dumbest fucking people alive when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
And you know, not anymore, as they're both very dead. But at the time, fucking awful. But they were really good with this. This is you know, and it was really nice seeing Tom Cruise sink his teeth into that role, right? And I'll also say this is probably the closest Tom Cruise got to channeling his character from Legend that he ever got to do in his career since then, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well put, everybody. All right. Well, this movie's got a great cast. We've already talked a little bit about Tom Cruise, but there may be some others to talk about, or we may want to talk about Tom Cruise some more. So, Manny, since this was your pick, you get to go first. What's a performance that you want to highlight?
Let's I don't know how, I can't set the gain or anything on this thing, so I'm gonna mute it.
Oh, you're
And
fine.
I'm
good.
dumb,
You
so I
sound
forget
great.
to unmute it. But let me tell you that when it comes to performances in this, I think Kirsten Dunst steals the show. I mean, for being as young as she is, to be able to, there's menace there. She's scary. You feel for her. As much as Louis' story is about this loss of innocence, she is the embodiment of that lost innocence. Like the sins of the father being revisited on the daughter, like tenfold, right? And it's so good, and she channels all of that for, you know, for how young she is, and even despite her age, I think that's still a hard role to pull off. So Kirsten Dunst, definitely.
She's amazing in the film. Absolutely stunning and amazing. And what's crazy is that was Jelani's pick for favorite character too. And you know how much that motherfucker hates children in movies.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
and
saying?
Tom Cruise.
Yeah. But he picked Kirsten Dunst as well. She's I cannot believe that she was that young doing that role. It was absolutely amazing. Like, cannot believe it. And she even said, like, there was no way that she could emotionally understand what this character was going through, but she was able to like just kind of mimic it a little bit by watching other movies and stuff like that. She nailed the role, killed it. What about you, Brooks? What's a performance you want to highlight?
Well, I mean, I love Tom Cruise's performance in this, but another character I love. I actually like Brad Pitt's performance in this movie as well as Louis. I like the character of Louis is like it's so interesting because he's a guy who like he loses everything, but then he finds like a new life, but like he isn't the entirety of his new life. He tortures himself. He's like such the polar opposite of Lestat, who just like embraces what he is and like revels in it. This Louis is always like he's always sulking, he's always like looking away, he's always like he's being a buzzkill basically. And like I love like even like his attitude during the interview, and like how he's just like he's like by this point he's just a really calm, cool guy, and he's just like telling his story to this dude. And I love at the end he's like, "Oh, you missed the point." It's like just it was a great performance too. Like I love like when he's a human, he's very emotional, but when he becomes a vampire, he slowly just becomes more robotic almost.
Yeah.
And like he has that good stare that he does, that kind of vacant Brad Pitt stare. Like it's like he was born to play this vampire guy for some reason.
Yeah, what's funny is that Brad Pitt wanted out of the role. Like when he like read the final script, he thought that they had kind of underdeveloped the character a little bit, which I might agree with that to a tinge, but he asked the producer, how much would it cost me to get out of this movie? And the guy goes $14 million. So he's like, all right, I'm going to power through this one. But it really helped make his career. Like there was a string of movies, but this was, I think, the one that really, really launched him forward. I mean, there was Thelma and Louise and there was some other things. I don't know if California was before or after this, but like, this was the one where everybody's like taking notice because he's got that silky hair, those dreamy eyes, which are not his eyes, right? But a very, very interesting performance for sure. And to what Joe was saying about the influence on Buffy from this movie, there's a lot of Louis and Angel, like a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Like Angel's pretty much the same character, almost a little bit. What about you, Verna? What's a performance you want to highlight?
Just to add on real quick to Brad Pitt, just doing the narration with that like accent that he's doing must have been a bit of a bitch because it's a hard thing to probably pull off. I think he does that really well too. Just like almost like a monotone, but to make that like something you can listen to, it sounds good. I guess I'll go Lestat. I wasn't expecting to have him. And I guess we've already mentioned how badass he was. I heard Steph say it. I've heard a bunch of people say it. And I agree when Steph said it a couple weeks ago that Collateral is the role that people are like, oh, this is Tom Cruise kind of stepping out of his comfort zone, doing something different and being scary. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, I agree. That was then. But this is that. It's like he's almost so unrecognizable. We don't even think of this as Tom Cruise almost in a way. He's this blonde guy. He's scary as hell. So he like really embodies the role. It almost makes you forget, as difficult as that is, that it's Tom Cruise. But I don't think he'd ever done anything like this leading up to this. So it's a giant departure 10 years before Collateral. I guess I'll just leave it at that. He should be like on the list of great like horror villains, at least from the 90s, man, or even vampires. You don't like see him mentioned much about like great vampire interpretations, but he's maybe one of the greatest, man. It's a like unbelievable performance after the rewatch.
Yeah, I agree. Like blown away. I really was blown away. Like I was like, there's what the hell? Like this is just what 2 years after Days of Thunder, which was his other great performance that he gave in his career. What about you, Joe? What's a performance you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks in the sense of this movie's really about those three characters, and then everyone else is fairly ancillary to that. I'll say a lot of like basically part of why this movie works is all of the victims are well done. I don't think there was a single victim in this movie that did a bad job and didn't sell it. Like the older woman with the poodles or whatever, like that whole scene where she's freaking out as he's killing, and then like Lestat comes from behind, just breaks like that whole bit. She sells it perfectly. there's also, I'll highlight this too. There's that one scene where they're like, there's that like statue watching that, like for no reason, the statue like has eyes or whatever. I was like looking like they put like some like extra or whatever and all that makeup just for like this one bit that was completely unnecessary. So like shout out
in '94 that played differently. People are like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that was pretty new.
Yeah, so it's like shout out to like that, I guess, actress. I don't know. I couldn't tell. You can't really tell, but like yeah, like shout out to that. That was to go through all of that for like a non-speaking role is crazy. You earned it, buddy. That was a good one.
So that's what you're going with? All right, nice.
What else am I gonna do? Antonio Banderas, because he's Antonio Banderas.
I thought you were gonna go with Stephen Ray for Santiago. Actually, that's what I thought you. That's where I thought.
I did like him too, but you know, you also need like someone.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go with Antonio Banderas as Armand.
Okay,
because I've always known that Antonio Banderas was a sexy dude. You know, he's got the voice, Zorro. Fucking Desperado, which is one of my favorite movies of his. Sure. But man, this movie, I came out of it going, I want to fuck Antonio Banderas. Like 100%. Like I would be DTF for him in this movie. There's just something about him that just, the way he like, when he puts his hand to the flame or whatever, and he's like, I don't know. There's just something about it. So I really like him in this movie, even though, yeah, it's like, okay, we're going to get to this part because they're villains. So I'm interested to know if in the book that gets fleshed out more. So, but I did like that. So let's get into style and structure. I think the style is great. It's kind of got this like slow, deliberate pace to it, but it's got this slow gliding camera, which really helps maximize that effect. It's got subtle lighting, I think, that is absolutely masterful. It's got brilliant effects from Stan Winston. The makeup effects look amazing. So the vampire makeup, and I'm not talking about when Lestat's like super gnarly, just the normal vampire makeup took like 3 hours to apply because they would hang these dudes upside down. So all the blood would rush to their head. Their veins would start popping out. Then they would start doing the makeup on the veins where their actual veins were. And then they'd go away and they'd have to hang them upside down again. Like, no lie. Like, this is why Stan Winston's an Academy Award-winning makeup effects artist, right? So I think that stuff's absolutely amazing. And the sets and the costumes, so superb. This movie cost $70 million to make in 1994. $10 million of that being Tom Cruise's salary, which was less than his asking price, but he got a percentage of the profits in return. They kind of had to like rush him into the movie because Anne Rice didn't want him. Everybody kept turning it down. Things like this. Like Daniel Day-Lewis was going to play him, and he dropped out weeks before. So it was like this whole ordeal. But he really got to it. I almost said sank his teeth into this role, and I wasn't even trying to make the damn pun. But he really did that, right? So, but like everything, you see the budget on this movie, like that set, the way those cameras are rolling and filming, the scope of it. I think the style is absolutely amazing. For the structure, I think it moves at a quick pace, even though it has kind of like a slow, deliberate nature to it. And it doesn't necessarily feel clunky. I do feel like the character of Louis is slightly underdeveloped compared to some of the, and like Lestat's not the main character. He like goes away for a big part of the movie, but I feel like there's more development with him and definitely Claudia than we really get from Louis. Like, I know it's there, but it's kind of like a monotone performance, like you said. At times, maybe I think the movie might be a bit too quick, right, with its pace. And maybe that's one of the reasons why that happens. But it's got a great balance of drama, horror, and comedy. It's got some funny bits, mostly involving Claudia just killing everybody they bring in. Like that whole bit of like My Two Dads, like that like montage in a way, like is one of my favorite bits of the movie. That would be, if this was a sitcom back in the 80s or the 90s, that would be like the opening montage, and like the piano instructor would like fall dead and they'd be like, and freeze frame or something like that. So I think it pretty much works in style and structure. What about you, Manny? What do you think?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think in terms of style and structure, it's got a timeless quality to it. I think that they do a really good job, considering it's like all at night because they're vampires. Like I think that the world still has kind of a lush, lived-in feel to it. I think that there's just enough costume, set dressing stuff to really engage you. I mean, because you could have been super lazy with the sets on this, right? I mean, they're just wandering around empty streets at night or sitting in hotel rooms, but they didn't. They kept it epic and opulent. I don't know. I think so. Yeah, I think it's well done. I do think, like you said, it's deliberate. I do think that when Tom Cruise isn't in the scenes, it that's when it drags. That's really when it drags. So I think you're spot on with your assessment of Brad Pitt in this. But yeah, I don't know. This is well crafted film.
All right. What about you, Brooks? What do you think about the style and structure?
Oh, I mean, it's two guys raising one precocious little girl. The twist: they're all vampires.
Gay vampires.
Yeah.
I think they're
I love
bisexual.
this
Come
movie.
on. I think they're bi.
Fair enough. Which is still
We need to
Yeah,
stop this
I-
bi erasure. Okay.
Yeah, they're dipping in both pools, I think. But yeah, like I like this movie is like it is very dark and it does have a lot of horror elements. It also has this kind of cheeky humor about it as well. Like, you know, the characters don't take things too seriously, and like I love, you know, this idea of him, like, you know, telling his life story to this guy, and like, you know, it's just, you know, because he's a vampire, it's like it just spans all of this time and like all of this, like the idea of all the people he runs across, like, you know, how his relationships with the people, you know, he's close to change so much and so drastically. It's like it's just a very interesting movie, I think. Like I just love the pace of it. You know, it feels like, you know, a real, like, you know, kind of life story, but done, like, you know, as a film with vampires.
Yeah, absolutely. But one twist.
and an interview.
They're vampires.
By the way, that interview, so Christian Slater, we haven't really mentioned him too much. So River Phoenix was going to play that character. He tragically died like a week or two before they started filming. Christian Slater was friends with him, took on the role, took the money, and gave it to two of River's favorite charities. So he actually didn't take any payment for the role, which I thought was pretty cool. And stand up. Speaking of stand up and pretty cool, well, it's not Joe's turn yet, but Verno, why don't you go ahead and let us know what you think about the style and structure?
I was going to show you guys my fancy shorts and everything. I'm glad you mentioned Christian Slater, because that's one thing that I always remember really liking about it. And I feel like I say this a lot. I feel like I keep on picking movies that you pick that start with the beginning or start with the ending. You know what I mean? Like, I also feel like that was a big 90s thing. It was like a Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction. Like that was a very like big storytelling trope in the 90s.
Yeah, Usual
But
Suspects. Like,
yeah, I also just enjoy it. I hear people criticize that as like narration as being like a cheap storytelling device, but I am a sucker for it. Like, I dig a story that's got narration, and I dig a story that keeps going back to the present time and shifting back.
So I got a question then. What's your favorite version of Blade Runner?
Oh fuck, I don't remember enough, dude. Not the one with the narration. Yeah, not that one, because
Okay,
it's one of the worst flaccid narrations ever. It's absolutely dog shit. What were we talking about? Oh, style, dude. Yeah, the set designs. I want to know. I don't think it was a set, but when Louis sees his last sunset, I feel like they went out to a swamp for that. I don't know. I'm curious how that was done, but regardless, if they built the set, amazing. If they went there and found that location, even more amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. Oh, there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, Anne Rice. I didn't know until today. I thought this book was written like 200 years ago. I didn't know she wrote this in 1976, bro. Like I literally thought this was like some old classic story. Like it fooled me. But I think when you look at like the pantheon of horror, this is one of the great horror. I know I said it's one of the great horror movies. It's definitely one of the top horror stories. Just like an epic, well told. And a few of you have mentioned timeless. Like when you make these these time, what the fuck am I trying to say? Timepiece? Something that's set in the fucking past. That's what makes it timeless. Like this will be the same movie 200 years from now, because that era is never going to change. It's not going to move on. But
yeah, and now you got me stumped because I'm trying to.
What is it?
I know the term you're thinking of. And why? Like I say it all the time. Like, damn.
It's a set piece. It's not set
Period
piece.
piece.
Period piece. Jesus.
I fucked you guys up by saying the wrong term.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. All right. What about you, Joe? What do you think about style and structure?
yeah, no, definitely the style again, it's phenomenal, and again, Stan Winston's a big part of that. Just really feeling immersed in all the period piece elements of it, jumping back and forth.
Where were you a couple minutes ago? What the fuck?
You know, no, but all of that, it's really well done. The structure, it's not that it's bad. It just there are moments in it where it feels a little inconsistent, where it's like, okay, like the framing device is this interview, and like sometimes it feels like we go so long without seeing Christian Slater again, and all of that it loses focus a bit. I feel like we needed maybe a couple of more interstitials of them to like keep the focus, break up the pacing a little bit. I think it could have helped with that, just structurally, but this is definitely a very stylistic film. It's shot so well. It's shot in a really engaging way. I think it would have been very easy for another director to have this feel too meandering. The movie, even though I'm having that critique with sort of the the structure, the movie doesn't get to the point where it ever truly feels aimless. It does get to points where you're like, all right, like, what are we doing here? I get it. Claudia is not happy. We've been doing this for like 20 minutes. Well, what are we doing? Like things like that. But again, like overall, it's the style is absolutely fantastic, and the structure. I know. I guess I don't know. Structure maybe is like a B- or a B or something. It's not that bad, but there's room for improvement.
Yeah. All right, let's get into one of my favorite topics. Let's talk about the music in the film. The score is done by Elliot Goldenthal, who you will know from such hits as Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, Demolition Man. I'm naming movies that it doesn't seem like this dude would compose, right?
Right.
But he also did Drugstore Cowboy, Pet Sematary, Alien 3, which I'm a big fan of, Heat, which I'm a super fan of, A Time to Kill, Sphere, terrible movie, great book, really great score on that one. Even did Frida, SWAT. Wow, that's terrible. Across the Universe, Public Enemy. So that's his work. I love the score in this movie. It's gothic, it's sweeping, and it's got a great example of using like soft and subtle techniques and contrasting that with like this epic, sweeping kind of giant gothic thing. It feels operatic at times, but it goes really low when it needs to. It really rides the emotional current of the movie, which I think it does fantastically well. What do you think about the music, Manny? What?
All right. It was a score for a period piece about vampires. Like it worked on those levels absolutely. Like I really wanted to like be able to be like, damn, this was the score for me. It worked. It got nominated for an Oscar, so the people that hand out the Golden Phallus Awards really liked it. So obviously they know more than I do. So I'm deferring to their excellence.
Yeah, and going back to the Buffy kind of comparison, Christopher Beck or whatever was the Christoph Beck was the composer for a lot of the Buffy scores. Takes a lot from this movie, like takes a whole lot from this, 100%. So what about you, Brooks? What do you think about the music?
It was fine. Like, it didn't really grab me too much, but when it did grab me, I did appreciate it. Like, I did think it was a good soundtrack, and it goes with the movie very well. But like, it's not one that it didn't stand out for me like a whole lot. There were just like basically a few points in the movie where I actually noticed the soundtrack. So, I guess that's good in its way because, it is, I like the movie, so obviously I like the soundtrack, and I didn't think like, the soundtrack was jarring or anything. So yeah, it was fine.
All right. What about you, Verno? What are you thinking?
I didn't even notice it until halfway through, but there's 3 moments that I noticed it, and I thought it was great. Like it was like fire, tasty choices. When the like Lestat is on fire, like the most intense moments, the score is wild. It's just going out of control. When he's on fire, that scene's going on, and then later on when they're burning the kid, Kirsten Dunst's character, it's out of control there. And then also at the beginning, it's very like I can't think of the word for it, but it's like easing you into the film, which I also love as far as the style, the way it like kind of floats down and the camera joins the crowd is badass. I did want to say something about structure real quick. I want to know if it bothered you that I forgot to say last time. It's weird the way it ends, like Louis' story ends in the past for like his whole journey to lead up to just him having a loss and then burning them down. Like there's nothing there. And that was like really bothering me. And then Christian Slater says, this can't be how it ends. This just can't be. And I'm like, okay, they get that it can't be how it ends. So like Louis' story is that's not satisfying at all. But the Tom Cruise ending and knowing where that's going to go with Christian Slater makes up for it. But there is a hole like in Louis' story that always kind of bugs me.
Yeah, I heard that in the novel that like Louis and Armand actually do like go together and travel Europe and stuff like that. And then Armand wants to see where Louis grew up, and that's why he winds up back in the US, and then they split or something like that. So I think there's a lot more to that part in the novel from what I've heard, but I've never read it. So
and, you know, like you say before, sometimes adaptations from a novel, like it'll work in a novel where like it might be goofy pacing. It's probably why.
Yeah, you got to get back to Tom Cruise as quickly as possible. I think at that point in the movie, especially after the climax of the movie is the death of Claudia, right? Like that's a very powerful moment. And then Brad Pitt just losing it with that scythe and just cutting people in half, dude, and shit like that, dude. So like, then we're gonna like wander around Europe for the next 20 minutes, until we get to the end of the film. There's no way. It's just no way. It would work in a book, wouldn't work in the movie, I think. Not structurally. What about you, Joe? What do you think about the music in the film?
I think it works really well. It never overwhelms the what's going on screen, because there's different ways to tackle these sort of movies, right? There's the like overwhelming, powerful. The soundtrack is like a cast member almost, and in the score is like really actively part of the environment. Here, it feels like more that it's like, enhancing what's already there. It's like putting a drop of water in your whiskey, or something like that. Like it's the like you're trying to like enhance the flavor, and I think the score does well with that. One of the biggest problems I think the score ended up having, like when it came to award season, is it was up against The Lion King. So that's.
Yeah, it ain't gonna work.
Says, yeah. So, whatever with that. But yeah, I thought the score worked. Again, there's those moments, like Verno was bringing up, like, when he's on fire and like really like ramps up. There's only a few moments like that. And they're only when it's a very high stress situation. So I think it does a really good job of that. There's a lot of like kind of quiet moments, but also there's not too much of it, but there's a little bit of it where the score or the lack of it enhances the comedy that's going on. And sort of like Verno as well, I'll say one thing I forgot to say earlier was the humor in Interview with the Vampire is just the humor Joss ends up using in Buffy. It's almost exactly the same kind of humor. Like this, the morbidness, and all of that. It really,
the villain that's very threatening, but then cuts a joke, like the mayor or the master or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. One great bit is when she kills the piano instructor and he's like all upset about it. And then he just has her scooter off the bench and takes over instructing with leaving the dead body there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. It's just like the inherent subtle humor of this like kind of odd family that the three of them sort of create together. There's a lot of like not jokes, but it's like a sort of humorous situation that we're observing, and the score can sort of like help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now it's time to break down the themes of the movie. What do we think it's saying? What is it saying to you? Brooks, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I think like a big theme of this movie is like this idea of like, companionship and how things can go bad. Like, it's like the idea of the vampires, like, eternity, eternal life. But like, the idea of eternal life being like eternal loneliness is like so unbearable, but they feel compelled to always seek out a companion. Vampire always finds another guy to like bite, to become their, to basically become their companion. And like, it doesn't work, like companionship doesn't work for eternity either, because people change over time, and like the more time you spend with somebody, sometimes like you start to like resent them and like hate them for like things you liked about them before. And like it's like, and I love that his solution to like try and get Louis to like get back into the swing of things is like, oh, I'll just have this little girl vampire, and we'll just have we'll have like a whole little vampire family. But it just makes things worse because the kid resents him, and now like her resentment is spread to Louis, and like Lestat kind of brings about his own downfall because he chooses I wouldn't say he chooses his companion poorly, but he just isn't able to maintain he isn't able to maintain what's necessary to keep this kind of relationship going. And that's it's kind of like a difficult thing, like a relationship with somebody that lasts for an eternity, like because like you also got to go out. You can't just like be friends with one person your whole life and like never interact with anybody else. Like you have to go out and find new people, and like have new experiences. And but if you're like only stuck with this one companion, like you can't you just eventually just feel stuck. And that's kind of the curse of the vampire, I guess.
Yeah, very well said. Loneliness and the way that works, especially for an immortal, like that's definitely something that it's diving into. 62, by the way, I just want to point out that this book was written right after Anne Rice lost her daughter. So this was like, she wrote it in like 5 weeks. So she was lonely, right? She was sad. She was dealing with some tragedy, and she kind of like got that out on the page. And some of the best art usually comes from people trying to deal with things that are impacting them personally in their lives. What about you, Manny? What's this movie speaking to you?
I don't know, the long drawn out thing. But no, it's about mortality, or and or immortality, I should say, and how do you hold on to any sort of moral compass when you're when you live forever, right? They have all of this power as vampires. They're free from the burden of consequence in a way. They can just pick up and move, which they do all throughout the film. And Louis just struggles to always hold on to that moral center, whether he's eating rats, whether he's trying to be a father to Claudia, whether he's dealing with the grief of it. Like, Lestat is the exact counterbalance of that. He's the exact opposite. He's power unchecked. He's lost that humanity. So when you're given the opportunity to be a monster, how much do you embrace it? How much do you go towards that with reckless abandon, to the point where you're going to get burned up and have to feed on Christian Slater eventually? And all the characters in here are young, and Claudia being the youngest of them, which we've kind of already talked about. Like, I feel like it's kind of like getting the Amazing Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Marvel gives you all this power, and you have to decide what you're going to do with it. Are you going to stick? Are you going to put Paul in your story, or are you not? You have to deal with the consequences, ramifications of those actions. So yeah, that's what this film's really about. It's about the Amazing Spider-Man.
Very well said. What about you, Verna? What's the movie speaking to you?
Fuck, honestly, he stole my thing. I was gonna say it was about the Amazing Spider-Man, but let me think of something. No, you know what? I like thinking of it as like some people got to learn lessons the hard way. Because if you look at it from Christian Slater's perspective, he's been told for 2 hours and 6 minutes about why you don't want to be a vampire. And he's like, yeah, fucking sign me up. So I really like that. And that's what most of us would probably, we're all in that situation where we're like, yeah, it's still pretty cool. It looks pretty dope. I'd probably sign up for it. But yeah, I'll go that route, man. I love the ending, and that's kind of the bit you get from it.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like, you know, I mean, and this happens to everybody in life, right? Let's just think about like drugs, right? Let's just talk about some hard drugs, right?
Let's do it.
You see, you know, the terrible effects of heroin, and hearing about that makes some people want to fucking do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, wow, like, oh man, that sounds like a great fucking time, you know, or something like that. Maybe heroin was the wrong one to pick. Maybe cocaine's a better one. But you know,
I was with you. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah.
What about you, Joe? What's the movie saying to you?
Well, I mean, this is just using vampires as a reflection of humanity and, you know, decisions that we make about doing something with ourselves that's, you know, beneficial for the greater good, or it's like, it's the, you know, making decisions for the group versus selfishness, right? It's very much like, okay, you know, and we make these kind of decisions all the time, sometimes in our day-to-day lives of, do you want to do the thing that's like going to be easier for you, the thing that's going to make your life easier, but other people are going to suffer? We make that decision constantly, and we're constantly being the vampires in those situations. And this movie is sort of like a reflection of that. And it's these people who, you know, like, you know, Brad Pitt here is, you know, spending more of that time dealing with that, you know, sort of the tragedy of the mistakes we make. And you see him become numb to it over time. But in a lot of ways, that is human nature for a lot of people. There is a reason why you find more people who are outraged and protesting and who are activists in their teens and 20s than you do in their 50s and 60s. Brad Pitt in this movie is that, you know, person who fits that category of, you know, we got to fight, we got to do this and that, who then just succumbs to nature and sort of just goes along with it. And you know, I think that's more or less what the movie here is saying.
Yeah, word. Nicely put from everybody here. What I'll say, and I add to it, is to me, it's about finding meaning in life, whatever that life may be. Right? Whether it's an unlife or an actual life, right? Themes of loneliness, like Brooks said, self-loathing, mortality. I mean, you're right, Manny. It's not just about immortality. It's about mortality. It's a morbid movie. It's about death. It's about how do you get over death, especially when you continue on after your death, right? And it's about forcing change on others to fulfill your own needs. Claudia didn't ask to be a vampire. Louis didn't even really ask to be a vampire. So it's this like cycle. Lestat is a vampire. He's lonely. He wants companionship. He wants friendship. He wants love, right? He wants a partner. He forces that life on Louis. Louis now has to deal with this. Louis then, you know, forces this onto Claudia. Maybe it's because he had good intentions, but at the same time, he's lonely too. Claudia does the same thing. Right? She wants to find a new companion when she thinks that Louis is going to leave her, right? So it's kind of about that. Like, we all want companionship. We all need love. We all need people in our lives, partners and friends and people that like make this. That's what makes this life worth living. And even if it's an unlife, like, right, it's still our responsibility to not force our will on others for what we need. It's our job to fulfill or help fulfill the needs of others as best as we can. And that's what community is. That's what a bond is. That's what a partnership is. And so it's about a toxic partnership that keeps just like, how many times have you had a bad situation, like a bad ex, but you wind up doing the exact same thing that girl did to you or that dude did to you to the next person? You know what I'm saying? And it's like this perpetual cycle of manipulation and toxicity in relationships, whether it's romantic or platonic or anything like that. So that's what I think it's saying to me. Now it's time for final thoughts and rating the film out of 5 possible you digs. You out there in the chat, what do you give Interview with the Vampire Chronicles from 1994? Manny, kick us off.
Boom. I'm giving it a solid. Give it a solid 4. I think. It's damn good. It's damn good.
All right. Is that it?
I think so. I could. I don't know. I'm sure there's some metaphors and analogies. I got a whole thing about tacos that I haven't used yet, but at the end of the day, I think I'm just going to keep it succinct.
All right. 4 you digs for Manny. What about you, Brooks? What you sitting on?
Yeah, I'd give this one 4 too. Like, I really enjoy this movie. I feel like I'd probably enjoy it more on like later watchings. I probably grow to appreciate it more, like later on down the line. But like as it is, like it was a really entertaining movie. It has its flaws, but I think overall, like it's I think where it shines, kind of like over it covers over the flaws in a lot of ways, I think.
All right. Heck yeah. What about you, Verno? What are you thinking?
I'm gonna go with 4.5. Way better than I expected it to be. Way more horrific than I expected it to be. And then I gotta mention the theater scene. How badass is that? What a crazy idea to take a victim out and kill him in front of an audience, and she's screaming, and they think she's an actress. So fucking cool, man. So that's one of like the epic set pieces that I've like forgot about and never think of. But
Yeah.
4.5.
I always remember that one because of the look on my homie's aunt's face when that shit happened, man. What about you, Joe? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I again really love this. There's a lot to like. There's some nitpicks, some problems, but yeah, I'd say 4. I really enjoyed this. It's one of those movies. Again, hadn't seen forever, saw it, and then I'm like, why isn't this like in like a rotation of movies? Why isn't this something I watch like every few years? Like that's weird. Like
Yeah.
I should have watched this again more recently. So I think this is something I'll be revisiting a lot sooner than I did this previous time.
Heck yeah. When I was chatting with Jelani just a little bit before the show, he wanted us to know that he gave it a 4.5, which is outstanding for Jelani for a movie that is, first of all, gay and has a child in it. So that really surprised me. I'm going to agree with him and Verno and give it a 4.5. I really liked this movie on the rewatch. Yeah. Like it really surprised me because you know me, I'm a big horror buff, right? And I like, I love Fright Night. Now I would never say, Verno, that Fright Night's my favorite vampire movie, but it's definitely top 5.
Right.
But I don't know, man. That might have got knocked out of that list.
What is that?
List.
You know what I mean? I was like Near Dark. I just watched Near Dark too. This is probably better. Like
it might be better, but Near Dark's my favorite because it's just so cool.
I get it.
And the score, the Tangerine Dream score. One thing we have learned on Cruise Choice is if there's a Tangerine Dream score, I'm down. Like 100%, right? Yeah. But no, I love it. Interview with the Vampire is one of the best vampire films out there. It's one of the best horror films of the 90s. It is fan-freaking-tastic. I love this movie. 4.5. My only problem is I do think I agree with some of the pace issues that we were talking about structurally, kind of slowing up or getting too fast at certain moments. I do think that the character of Louis is slightly underdeveloped in the movie, just a little bit. But overall, man, I really loved it. I was feeling for these characters. I was feeling bad for them. When Claudia dies, it's a supremely tragic scene. And that little girl needed to die. You know what I'm saying? Not because of what she did to Lestat, but because of what they turned her into, right? I mean, and it's a way better characterization of the young as a vampire than Homer in Near Dark. I would say that Near Dark's Homer is a little bit more heavy-handed, but I don't know, man. It's just a really brilliant performance from Kirsten Dunst. From Tom Cruise, probably the best performance I've seen in his career. Honestly, nowadays, this dude's got to hang off of buildings in Dubai to like get to that level again, hang off an airplane, learn to fly a jet, shoot me off into space, man. What's going on next? who knows? He's going to walk on the moon. He's actually going to send him to the moon to do like the biopic of Neil Armstrong or something like that. So 4.5. So 4.5 from me, Verno, and Jelani. A 4 from Manny, Brooks, and Joe. I can't kayfabe it with a 69. It's a 4.25. That's very easy math to do. So overall PCP rating of 4.25 for Interview with the Vampire. Really great pick, Manny. I'm over the jokes of Dr. Sleep and Page Master now, even though those movies weren't as bad as I'm letting on, except for Page Master. That movie was pretty shitty. But thus concludes our movie review for Interview with the Vampire. Next week, it's John Hammertime Holeshoe's pick for Crew's Choice. That's right, because he was on Godzilla yesterday at Blood Splatter Chatter. That means 2 live appearances from John Hammertime Holeshoe this year, or this month. So very excited for that. He picked Oblivion, which is a movie I haven't seen, so I'm excited to dive into it and see if it's worth the hype that Hammertime Holeshoe sends my way. So join us next week for Oblivion as we near the end of Tom Cruise's choice. All right, Manny, what you got to talk about? Final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to have picked a good one for now, and I'm excited to see where the future has in store for that. So. I don't know. My name is Manny. You can catch me here on Pop Culture Philosophers channel doing these things for now. But you guys have just watched an hour and something of that, and you don't want to see any more of that. So go check out something you do want to watch. Go check out Stu at Dr. Doom's fan club for Supreme Clientele. Steph, Stu doing big things, giving us great breakdowns on comics. Just two dudes that absolutely love the medium and it comes out in everything they say. So go check out Supreme Clientele, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Go do that. Do me a favor, somebody out there with a wrench. I see you, Fable. Throw out the link to the channel so everybody can get ready for their next show. I think they're off this week, but they'll be back next week. Stu's going to Heroes Con. All right, Brooks, thank you so much for being here. Final thoughts.
Well, the Louis Tamala Stott isn't here, obviously, but so it falls on me to promote our channel, Go Figure Reviews, where we recently did a couple of videos. We did the Shield 3-pack, which was impressive to me. Like I really liked it. And we also did the Turtles of Gray Skull Merman figure, which is like really nice. I really liked
dope
it.
looking figure, man.
Yes, he is. He's purty. But yeah, so if you want to see 2 totally not vampire guys do figure reviews, that's the place you should do it at. We're totally not vampires. We're humans.
Heck yeah. All right. Verno, thank you so much for joining us for not just Crew's Choice, but a little bit of, like, I don't know, it's getting me even more excited for Horror Fest coming up, brother. Like, I got to use the horror movies, technically, so I got to use the Horror Fest music and the March Madness music, and I was really excited.
Bro.
So I just love that. So what you got coming up at your channel, because it's Horror Fest there every single week.
Every day, but I will say I'm excited. I've been on my phone. I now have the note section of Horror Fest 2024, making the lineup, getting very excited about that. But yeah, dude, first go watch Godzilla -1 if you haven't seen that. That's the thing I'll promote. Go watch Godzilla -1 if you enjoy it, which you will. Go watch the conversation I had with Hammertime Holeshoe, Rockin, Robbie, and Link yesterday on the channel. Fantastic. Such a great conversation. We played Kaiju Trivia, lots of fun. But also, Robbie's going to be back this Thursday. We're doing this big summer abroad thing, bunch of foreign horror films. We're going to be talking about Suspiria with Robbie, so it should be fantastic this Thursday.
Yeah, I better be on that show. Like, nobody covers Suspiria and not have me on the show. You know what I'm saying? We've done it on DHS. We've done it here at PCP. This is my 3rd go-around, dude. I'm ready to do it again.
Hell yeah.
Hell, Brooks, you guys want to talk about it on Go Figure Reviews? Just invite me. They don't even have action figures, I don't think, but let's do it.
When they release a Suspiria line of figures.
Right.
Oh, dude. They better not, dude. They would ruin me. Ruin me. Everybody, yeah, for real. Go check us out Thursday night on Blood Splatter Chatter talking about Suspiria.
8 o'clock Central Time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you so much for being here. What you got?
Thank you. Yeah, and Suspiria is great on the big screen if any of you ever get a chance to watch it that way. But
Bastard.
yeah, but well, most recently last week, the DC Pride, a celebration of Rachel Pollack, came out. If you haven't picked it up yet, and your store has it, pick it up. Let's make this motherfucker sell out. All right, you know, you make this motherfucker sell out so I can sell out. All right, let's do it.
Yes.
Help me, help me, help me. That would be great. But is that you could still get the King Arthur and the Knights of Justice graphic novel. You know, I've been getting some positive feedback on it. But yes, please, you haven't picked it up yet, give it a shot. Why not? You love 90s nostalgia. If you're watching this channel, you're probably 30 or 40 or 50 something that loves the 90s for better or worse. So, you know.
Dude, why are you picking on my analytics, man? What you doing? There's a couple 18-year-olds apparently that watch the but I think they're all in Saudi Arabia or something. I don't know. Yeah, everybody go check out that tribute to Rachel Pollack. Everybody go check it out. If your shop doesn't have it, give me a ring because we got plenty of them in my shop because I ordered big on it to support my buddy Joe.
Thank you.
Heck yeah, everybody check it out. Thank you all so much for being here. We really do appreciate it. Join me and Verno over at Suspiria. Check out Go Figure Reviews. Check out Joe Corallo's work. Check out Stu and Link over at Supreme Clientele. And be back here next week for Oblivion, the penultimate episode of Cruise Choice. Getting ready for it. Haven't seen this movie. Very excited. Y'all, thank you so much. I wish I remembered a good quote from this movie. Brooks, lead us out with a quote from the movie.
God damn. I don't have fucking words.
Yeah, there's that much.
Bleh. Bleh.